There's no doubt the Big Ten hasn't really fared all that well in a 4-team college football playoff. But will the expanded 12-team college football playoff mean more wins in the postseason for the Big Ten? Before I get into that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Big Ten content all off-season long. Always mash that like button to spread the word of Big Ten Ted to the masses. If you look at the Big Ten Conference in the 4-team college football playoff that was introduced starting in the 2014 season, out of all those years, a combined 3 victories for the Big Ten Conference in the 4-team college football playoff format. All victories by Ohio State. You look at Ohio State, they're 3-4 in the college football playoff. Michigan's 0-2, and Michigan State had that one appearance. Of course, they're 0-1. A combined 3-8 record. So what does that mean? What does it prove? Well, it means the Big Ten, for better or for worse, mostly for worse if you're watching this channel, has not been able to compete with the elite of the elite in college football. And that's your Alabamas, and that's your Georgias, and that's your sometimes Clemson. They haven't been able to compete at that level. You put them on a field one-on-one with those types of teams, sometimes other teams, but most of the time with those types of teams, they haven't been able to get the job done, and they haven't really showed up well in those college football playoff games at the top 4 type of level. So now you expand the playoffs starting in 2024. What a college football season that is going to be. When you open up the college football playoff field to 12 teams, is that going to equal more wins for the Big Ten? The answer is yes, and I'm going to tell you why. Because in order to really see what the future is going to look like, you kind of got to take a look at the past as well. I mentioned what the Big Ten had done since this revamped playoff format and postseason format in 2014. You know what else happened in 2014? The advent of the New Year's Six as we know it. Now let's look at bowl games outside of the playoff, the 14 playoff that are New Year's Six bowl games. Those other 4 every year. The Big Ten has played in 16 of them since 2014. They've won 11. Yeah, they're 11-5 in New Year's Six bowl games outside of the college football playoff. What does that tell me? These bowl games, those other 4, those are going to be your quarterfinal games. You know, those are going to be games leading up to the Final Four, leading up to the semifinals. And what this tells me is the Big Ten has fared well at that level. They haven't really fared well against the elite of the elite at the national championship type of level, but at just a notch below, the Big Ten maybe is as good as it gets at that particular level. And you know what? The Big Ten is poised to get deeper. Like, you look at what USC is doing, USC joining the conference in 2014. Like, they're going to be a perennial top 10 program. You look at what Wisconsin is doing and building under Luke Fickell. They're going to be, I'm not sure if they're going to be a perennial top 10 program like a USC, but that is going to be a program that I think is going to be right around playoff eligibility. I think maybe year in and year out, the depth of the Big Ten, I think, is deeper. Maybe not at the top. Maybe Ohio State and Michigan can't quite compete right now at that national championship level like maybe the SEC can, but you kind of go down to that next tier, and I think that's where the Big Ten really flexes its muscle. And I think they're going to stack up well with the competition that they've played. They've proven that in these New Year's Six bowl games. You look at ACC champs, you look at Big 12 champs, like you look at the Big 12 conference when Texas and Oklahoma leave. It could be sooner rather than later, but at the very least, by 2025, you look at your TCUs. I know TCU beat Michigan. I get that. I understand that. But you look at TCU, you look at Oklahoma State, you look at Baylor, like, and maybe throw in a BYU in there, you know, like those are going to be your top teams. And even if you take out Michigan and Ohio State, you compare those teams to your Penn States, your USC's, Wisconsin's. I think most years the Big Ten is going to be favored in those matchups. Hate to sound like Nick Saban, but you know, the Big Ten most years are going to be better teams than those top tier Big 12 teams. ACC, like Clemson's taking a drop down. Like you look at programs like a Penn State, you look at a program like a USC right now, I think they're almost, maybe not USC quite yet because their defense really stinks, but maybe like a Penn State. I'd say Penn State is pretty similar right now, especially with what we saw this last season to a team like Clemson. Clemson has taken a drop down from that elite college football playoff type of level the last few seasons. There's no doubt about that. Now, Ohio State, Michigan, like I said, I don't know if they're going to match up with Bama and Georgia. And I mentioned the next tier of Big Ten teams because naturally they're going to be compared with these SEC teams, right? The Big Ten and the SEC is where a majority of these berths, and these at-large berths, I should say, are going to come in the Big Ten or in this new 12-team college football playoff. Penn State, USC, Wisconsin, I already mentioned those. The next teams right now, really in the SEC, outside of Bama and Georgia, are Tennessee, our Ole Miss, our LSU. And to be honest with you, I think Penn State, USC, and Wisconsin match up pretty well with those teams because we might be seeing some Big Ten versus SEC showdowns. And if we don't see those Big Ten versus SEC showdowns, we're going to see an at-large Big Ten like a Penn State, like a USC. We're going to see them matched up against a Big 12 champion like Oklahoma State. We're going to see them matched up against a Pac-12 champion like a Washington or an Oregon. You kind of see where I'm going with this? You see where I'm going? I just think the depth of the Big Ten, especially with the addition of USC, is going to equal more victories in that first-round game. Talking about the first-round game, you got to talk about the weather. You got to talk about the outdoors. You got to talk about Madison, Wisconsin. You got to talk about State College, Pennsylvania in December. Like, that is a big-time advantage for Big Ten teams. It wouldn't surprise me if the home field advantage, the outdoors, the colder weather in the middle of December equal more victories for the Big Ten Conference in those first-round games before we get to the neutral sites in those quarter-final games. I think there's a lot to love about the 12-team playoff and the success of the Big Ten going forward at the postseason level. Want to hear what you guys think. Do you think the Big Ten is going to be better once we get to 12 teams? Will that open it up for more early round victories and maybe, just maybe, some later round semifinals and national championship victories? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you subscribe to Big Ten Ted if you haven't already. I'm Big Ten Ted. We will see you in the next one.